Hello, everybody. I am the modern monarchist. I am a small part-time super chatter of the America First show. Yeah, it sounds kind of piddly, and it is, but I think we all got interesting ideas that we need to talk about. I also run an Instagram, a couple Instagram channels of low tier worth, but here I'm talking today with Speckzo Politics, and Speckzo is quite an influential groiper. I'm not flattering here, but he's quite influential, and he's offering a platform to a lot of us on the America First spectrum. So just want to say thank you very much, Speckzo, for having me on.
Yeah, of course.
And
It's a very
it's an
high
honor to
praise.
be with you today.
Thank you. It's an honor to see you again. It was good to see you at AFPAC and all that stuff. It was good talking to you, and it was actually great talking to everybody and meeting all those people. It was really cool. So,
Mm-hmm.
mhm.
It was it's one of those things where you get people of like-mindedness together, and you actually get to see, okay, is this person as insane as they are on their online personality,
Yeah,
or are they,
absolutely.
a little normal? But
Hmm.
anyways, the topic of what I wanted to talk about today is philosophical in nature, and I agree. Maybe some people may not like this, but we're going to be talking about the Enlightenment. So
Mm.
before I begin, like, what is your opinion as a Roman Catholic about the Enlightenment?
Okay, well, first off, I need to say that these opinions are strictly my own and are not associated with the America First movement as a whole. It has nothing to do with the main platform of what Nick says or anything like that. This is strictly my own opinion. So if I say anything that goes against what Nick believes in or the America First is about, then I am only representing myself. I'm not representing the America First movement. Got to get that out there. The Enlightenment is garbage. But don't people seem to look at things at such a surface level that they don't really go any deeper. For example, a lot of people like to blame Jews on everything, right? They get autistic about Jewish people and they want to blame Jews for everybody's problems, right? When
Mhm.
really the stem of all of our problems, everything you could ever imagine comes from materialism. Right, that in my and I don't mean materialism as in like liking nice things or fancy things. I mean materialism as in putting the material, carnal, temporal world over the importance of God. And that began, in my opinion, with the first, I guess you could say, humanist or subjectivist movement, which was the Protestant Reformation, which was the precursor for the Enlightenment and all these ideas of individualism and liberty and stuff like that. And that's how I see it. The way that I see the world is I see that the Protestant Reformation led to the Enlightenment, which then led to this hyper individualism and subjectivism, and then bad acting, subversive characters used that and the Industrial Revolution to basically take over all facets of power and influence over the world and push this anti-Christian agenda that they have going.
Well, that's very true. I mean, I was going on here to say, like, wow, here's my point of view, but my point of view just it coalesces right with yours, and that's nice to hear that coming from another Catholic, because I know you say the word Catholic these days, and what comes to your mind is a whole host of ideas. You got cheesehead, Bishop Dolan of Wisconsin. He's wearing the cheesehead, giving a sermon, and then you got people like Archbishop Vigano, and then you have the SSPX, you have Sedevacantists, you have all these different crowds just in one single Catholic word. And I'm glad to see that you agree with the Enlightenment here. With my views on the Enlightenment.
That was actually one
What
of
I
my,
think is
oh god.
Yeah, sorry. What I think is really important to remember about this is that none of these issues that we attack, like socialism or capitalism per se, people like to think that that is like the root of all problems. These are just symptoms. They are just offshoots. The root, in my opinion, is enlightenment. It is modernism. All these things are just spread from that.
Absolutely.
You know, college historians, like, you go to your local university, and what do you see? You see, they say, the Enlightenment is a beautiful flower, blossoming from the dark caves of the French monarchy and from the oppressive Holy Roman Empire. But why is it so damning to say this in public? When you say this, I say the Enlightenment is a weed. It's a perverse weed that it spread ambiguities. It gave license for perverts to operate freely under the guise of ambiguous freedoms. Like, kind of drives me nuts, dude.
Absolutely.
There's a whole,
It's all subjectivism. It's all about going against God's natural order. We already have what is right or wrong. We already have objective good and objective evil. And this modernist, individualist, what you said, it just goes against everything that God has already established us. He told us what is good and what is evil, and He gave us the church to enforce those things and to interpret any questions that may arise. But instead, we went against that, and now as a result of that, we are being run by Satanists essentially.
oh yeah, and these Satanists, they like to oh they like to say that, oh yeah, Satanists, we're cool and we're hip, and we actually just like everything that's happening in the world. LGBTQ, we're okay with that. Abortions, of course we're okay with that. And you should be open and free-minded when dealing with us. And then they look upon Catholics, or even just other Christians that aren't willing to put up with this BS, and they are even worse than how they thought the Inquisition was. They are worse than how they thought the Jesuits were in censoring us. The Inquisition at least was a fair and
Inquisition was
balanced
based. We need
way
another
of
Inquisition.
reconciling.
I want another
Yeah,
Inquisition.
I I
What?
say that word and
Yeah,
people instantly, like, they lose their minds, but
yeah. It's
in a way
mhm,
they are the Inquisition. Now,
mhm. Right, but they're working for evil, whereas the Inquisition at least thought they were working for good. Maybe they abused some, maybe they did some wrong things or whatever, but they were trying to perpetuate Christendom, right? So
oh yes.
I mean, and I think that if you look at like history, because people just seem to like want to get away from Christianity, or they want to pervert Christianity, and they want to try and make it seem like it's something that it's not, and they want to display Jesus Christ as like this hippie, don't judge anybody, tolerate everything, when it's literally the complete opposite. Jesus Christ was not this hippie who just was okay with everything. He detested sin. He accepted sinners because we're all sinners if you repented for your sin. But he came and he said, I did not come to bring peace. I came to bring sword. I came to divide households. I came to put father against son and so on. So I don't, and what did he do? This was actually the homily in church today. It was about the verse talking about Jesus forming a whip and kicking the money changers out of the temple because they were desecrating his father's house. Right? So this idea that Jesus was this like all-loving, peaceful guy that just didn't care about anything. No, he hated sin. He wanted people to love him and his father. Right? So I think this idea of like trying to pervert Christianity and what it truly is about. Yes, it is about love, it is about mercy, but it's not about tolerance. Tolerance is not a Christian virtue. Tolerance is evil. God does not tolerate evil, and neither should we.
Exactly. That's funny you should bring up Christ kicking out the money changers, because a lot of people view that as Christ as a socialist, as Christ as somebody who hates capitalism. But when you look at it more clearly, he's just about, it's kind of about usury. And you'll notice how usury runs a very common theme in the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment broke up the old, would you say, Catholic economical sphere of things, in which money, there was not a natural charging of interest on loans. And St. Thomas Aquinas is probably one of the best about this issue. He said, usurers and sodomites, and Dante concurred in his Inferno trilogy, or, his whatever you call that. He concurred. He said, sodomites and usurers, they inhabit the same tier of hell, because sodomites take what is fertile and make it infertile. And usurers take what is infertile and make it fertile.
Yeah.
And that is so true. You put mice in a cupboard, and you come back 2 weeks later when there's just two mice originally. You come back, there's a cupboard full of mice. They can reproduce. But you put two coins, and no matter how much you rub them together, they're not going to copulate. Not even if you do it over like 2 weeks' time. So this accruement of money, which really, like you said, started with the Protestant Reformation. Like British Empire built its empire off of the blood and ruins of British monasteries. Change my mind. Stephen Crowder, change my mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I was going to say something that, like, you look at history, and you had the Catholic Church ruling for like 1400 years after the collapse of the Roman Empire. You had the Papal States, you had the Holy Roman Empire, and you had all of these Catholic monarchies that were their own individual nations, but they were all operating by having loyalty to the papacy and to Jesus Christ, essentially, and to the Church, the Holy Roman Church, right? And there was wars and there was like arguments and stuff like that, but it was nothing compared to the brutality of what war is now. They all understood that they still believed in the same God. And what are the Crusades? What is the Reconquista? It's not like turning the other cheek like liberals want to say it is. It's like, no, we defended Christendom. We united under Christianity to fight back Muslim hordes that were trying to retake the Holy Land. So yeah, and as you were saying, like the Protestant Reformation just when we had the Catholic Church ruling over everything, we always had these problems of heresy. You could look at like Donatism and all these other things where they were saying that like, oh well, if the clergy did something wrong, then their ordination is null and void, which wasn't true. And they had things like that, or Arius, who said that Christ wasn't the same as God and stuff like that. All of these different heresies were basically stomped out by like ecumenical councils and stuff like that that were able to interpret proper dogma. Then when the Protestant Reformation came, it was the first like successful heretical movement, because they said like, okay, we're going to interpret the Bible any way we want. We're going to translate the Bible, and all peasants and commoners are going to be able to interpret it. We're going to remove eight books, by the way, and everybody's yeah,
Please.
yeah, everybody's going to be their own priest and stuff like that. And people like, oh well, the Catholic Church was so horrible because they didn't want peasants to read the Bible, and it's like, because the Bible was canonized by the Catholic Church, right? This was like my journey too. Like when I first became a Catholic, because I had no when I accepted that Jesus Christ was who he said he was, that was my first path. And ironically, a Protestant led me to actually believe in, like, from a secular perspective, that Jesus Christ was divine. And I started looking, well, there has to be a correct way to praise Jesus Christ. It can't be like one of these 10,000 different denominations that all hate each other. And I started looking into, when I started getting into like the Catholic Church, I realized that like, okay, well, there has to be a proper interpretation of the Bible. Everybody interprets something different. And it's like, well, the Bible didn't exist for the first 300 and something years of Christianity until I think at the Council of Nicaea or something, they canonized the biblical scriptures, right?
Mhm.
And the proper interpretations are the dogma and magisterium of the Catholic Church, because they hold the proper interpretation, because there was different ways of writing things, there was different translations, there was different styles. Yes, they're all divinely inspired, but we can't just look at it as strictly as face value as literalists. We need the Catholic Church, that hierarchical structure, to interpret it for us.
Yeah. You need objective thinking. You need objectivity. This subjectivity, it leads to the many disabilities and ailments that cause pain in our world today, and that cause confusion. You just look at the fact that now we have hundreds of splinters of Christian churches, so-called Christian churches, and we have even splinterings of the Catholic Church. You asked me, are the Catholic priests that dance around in a circle and have bones on their head in Africa and combine pagan rituals with their ceremony, are they the same as Catholics who offer the dignified and world-renowned and timeless holy sacrifice of the Mass? That is a very difficult question, and all of this has come from the breaking of that beautiful plate of Catholicism. And once it was broken, we could never put it back together again. And even our allies were so fragmented. We're so fragmented because of this enlightenment. And because we can't agree. We can't agree on what it means to be, conservative and reactionary. And that is why I came to America First, speckzo.
Mm-hmm.
That is why I came to it, because I never had a Wignat phase. I never had any of these libertarian phases. I was always looking for the most pragmatic and the most efficient way to return to form, which is, pre-Enlightenment. And America, I agree, was built off of the Enlightenment. You look at the Revolutionary War heroes. It's controversial to say this, maybe. Some of them were Masons. Some of them were deists.
Almost all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, all of them. But like, I think it was Jefferson that, one of them kept out God's name on purpose from being mentioned more often. And this is kind of shady. The Constitution is almost a relic of a simpler and easier time. And I wish that it could, apply to many of these problems now. But do you think that they built the Constitution to apply to ever-changing values and morals? They thought America would be Christian forever. But, you look back in hindsight, and it was only because America still had the residue of Catholicism. And that was why it was able to produce such greatness. But as each generation dragged on and on and on, and we're allowing these perverse things to spread in the name of freedom, each generation becomes worse and worse. And the kinds of things they allow to spread just gets worse and worse. And the 60s was like a huge pimple popping
Oh
across the
yeah,
culture.
absolutely. Hmm.
Ugh.
And yeah, to what you were saying, so I came to America first. I didn't really have a Wignat phase. I had more of an accelerationist phase where I was just like burn it all down, burn the system down, and stuff like that, which
Black
developed from a
pill,
yeah.
black pill.
But I was never like oh white supremacy and purity spiraling, all that nonsense or whatever. Like some people get into those phases. I never really had that phase. I did have an accelerationist phase though, but I came to America first because Nick was articulating. Viewpoints that are natural viewpoints, but how we have been pathologized to believe that they're crazy and not trust our natural senses and our God-giving abilities to perceive reality. But Nick had this talent, this skill that he's able to articulate these talking points to make it sound reasonable to even the most normal person. And I truly believe, I'm not just saying that, I truly believe that God is working through Nick Fuentes to spread a message of true Christianity and God's natural order, right? And people,
Nick's a wordsmith.
absolutely. His oratory abilities and his articulation are absolutely phenomenal. And I've been called like a clout chaser and a face fag and all this nonsense lately or whatever. I don't understand why, but I've
I
been
didn't know what face fag meant for the
yeah.
longest time.
But
I
and
thought it was some homo thing.
yeah, I'm not going to address the little drama that I've been involved with recently, but I will address this. I have been politically involved and face fagging for I've been politically involved on Instagram for like 6 years almost, and I started face fagging like 2 years ago before I was even part of America First or whatever. I started supporting America First in mid 2018, and then I met Nick last year, and once he basically gave me this like quote unquote stamp of approval, he was okay with my look and my views, I guess, or whatever. Then I dedicated myself to this, and I got a little popularity, not even a lot, on Twitter. But now people are questioning my intentions and all this stuff, whatever. But to what your point was saying about the Constitution, the Freemasons, and stuff like that, absolutely, the Constitution is complete Masonic nonsense. Don't get me wrong; it's an important document, and it's like obviously a historical, and it has a lot of good ideas or whatever, right? But the Constitution or any governing um, let's say any constitution or any type of piece of paper that says the laws, right, is only relevant insofar as it protects and preserves your nation. And the Constitution has failed to protect us from where we are now. It's failed to protect us from this multicultural hellhole where everybody hates each other and everybody has opposing views and thoughts on what they want the country to be. And yeah, even though the founding fathers, a lot of them were Masons and stuff like that, I don't know if they were really like super like evil Masons like we know about
No,
because
it was a social club for the
right,
elite back then.
exactly. And also if you look at like a lot of what the founding fathers said, they were like Wignats, like compared to like what we would consider now. Like if somebody was saying the stuff that they were saying, it'd be like, okay, you're just like a Wignat. They were saying like the Irish were
Yeah.
black and like that Germans weren't white. They were swarthy and stuff like that. So like,
Oh, Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin thought Pennsylvania would become a German ethno state
yeah,
with how much immigration was coming in.
right. Yeah. So I mean, like, but the truth of the matter is that since before we declared our independence, we have always been a pan-European, mostly British, but we also had Germans, and then the other colonies that weren't owned by Britain yet were France and Spain. The Catholic ones actually, like
Yeah.
Maryland and Virginia and stuff, or no, I don't remember, but there was like
Louisiana.
yeah, and so we have always been a Christian, whether Catholic or Protestant, and pan-European nation, and
Mhm.
you have to like look at, maybe they didn't specify it that that's what America was meant to be or whatever, but it was based on Christian values. Yes, there was like some Masonic tendencies and they didn't name Jesus Christ in the Constitution like they definitely should have. But if you think that they lived in this land and they expected it to become this liberal, multicultural, like cesspool of like neoliberal modernism, you're out of your mind.
Mhm. Oh yeah, they are. Like if you even look at like people that even are even worse, like Karl Marx or Charles Darwin, if they could just see the fruits of their labor. And I'm not sure about Marx because he had a very, very deep motive. But Darwin, perhaps, and some of these guys that are just stumbling upon these ideas that kind of screwed up the world, I think they would turn back and burn their manuscripts and not talk about it,
Yeah.
because your Soviet Revolution, basically, they're cutting everybody's genitals off now. That's what your Soviet Revolution is, Marx.
Mhm.
It's no longer your glorious rising of the proletariat that you thought it was, and it truly never was.
Never was, yeah.
It's something else now. It's something completely else. And I think that changed. For instance, the Soviets changed when Solzhenitsyn when he came back to the West, or when he went to the West, it killed economic Soviet, Soviet, economics.
Hmm.
You couldn't, no one believed that you can run a socialist state anymore. So, they had to change how people viewed communism. Was it going to be a force for economical change, or is it going to be a force for social change? Is it going to be, for gender, for race? And that's where they switched their opinions to. The old left was all about
Unions,
money and
yeah.
distributing and collectivism, that kind of stuff. But now it's completely about, it's
Just
all race fecting, it's all about that stuff.
yeah, it's just,
But
yeah, abstractions and no race matters. White people are evil. Gender is just a social construct. All that stuff. And as you were saying, I think that if we can go back to the founding fathers and show them the world that we live in now, they would make some very more specification, a lot more specifications in the Constitution than
mhm,
they already did. And a funny thought that I was thinking about talking about socialism and communism. Obviously, there's a false dichotomy going on right now between capitalism and socialism. People think that that's just the end all be all, and we have to have this like dogmatic economic policy. When, in my opinion, we just need to have an economic policy that benefits the nation. We need to have an economy that works for the nation instead of having a nation that works for the economy. That's really my standpoint. I don't really give into like this hyper capitalism nonsense. I think capitalism is just state sponsored usury, as E. Michael Jones says. And what was I going to say? Um, the main problem with communism and this idea of collectivism and complete wealth distribution is that it goes against natural order. People aren't going to go to school for 8 years and become a doctor if they're going to be making the same exact money as like a janitor or something like that. And because everybody's
yes.
just going to like distribute everything because they're doing it for like this abstract idea of the greater good, and we have to destroy a religion and all differences, and everybody's just going to be completely equal. We're going to strip all individualism, and that just doesn't work because it's unnatural. The only time, ironically, that communities where complete wealth distribution actually works is in like monasteries, because they're all living for Jesus Christ, because they all are under that same, and they're doing it willingly. When people say communism never works or whatever like that, it doesn't work naturally. It has to be enforced. That's why all communist states become authoritarian, because the government needs to strictly enforce it. Where in monasteries and stuff like that, where they're distributing wealth among the monks or the nuns or whatever, it's because they want to, because they believe in Jesus Christ, and that's what they're living for.
hmm Catholic economics, as prescribed by Pope Leo the 13th, is in Rerum Novarum. That's a very good encyclical. Even if you're non-Catholic, I recommend reading Rerum Novarum. It took a long time for the popes to learn how to deal with the Enlightenment. A lot of the ones directly afterwards were too busy dealing with, little midgets like Napoleon and other things in order to, so they couldn't deal with the big brain stuff that was perverting and rotting the church. And so popes like Leo the 13th, like, I don't know if you agree, but like him, Pius the Ninth, even if you're not Catholic, you guys should read these encyclicals. They're
Mm-hmm.
so good, filled with meaty stuff. Politically, these guys are on the ball. Like, Pius the Ninth is called the Hammer of Liberalism. Okay, like this guy was a beast. He went into the papacy, and this has been confirmed, disguised as a liberal. He disguised his viewpoints, and as soon as he got elected, he did a full 360.
Really? Who is
And
this?
Pius the Ninth, he was pope for 32 years, in late 1840s to early 1870s,
Okay.
and it was at that time when Rome was destroyed, when the papal states were destroyed. And what was the trifecta of flags outside of the Vatican? It was the green of the Masons, I believe, the black of the Satanists, and the red of the Communists. Those three flags were being flown outside St. Peter's when the papal states fell. And when he was being carried to his resting ground, Pius IX, they tried to take his body and throw it into the Tiber. So, like, this is what's going to happen to us. We're no popes. We're no great popes, but this is what we have to expect with, portraying our politics. We can't just go out there and expect to stream and joke around and break each other's balls. You got to be mature about America first. And I'm talking to the audience here, Speck, so I know you are.
Mm-hmm.
I know you are. But you guys, we have to know when it's time for seriousness, and we have to be ready to take this movement into the next level. And that means doing deep thinking. That means applying what's in here to your mouth, to your hands, if you're Italian, and to the rest of the world. So that's kind of like my stance. It's good to know about these matters, these historical matters,
Well,
because it
that's
lays a path in your mind.
Hmm.
that connects to your heart. So you're not just feeling, oh yeah, nationalism, rah, rah, rah,
Hmm.
but it gives you real reasons on why to think like
Right. Well, Christianity needs to be the foundation of everything in life, I believe. I said this on Twitter. I said, you can't really love anything if you don't love Jesus Christ first. You know, if you don't put Jesus Christ first, nothing else can really truly matter. And as far as the America First movement, yeah, it's a young movement. Yes, we joke around. We have our own lingo, our own irony. We make offensive jokes sometimes or whatever. But and I'm only saying this as like from a layman's point of view. I hold no authority in the hierarchy. I am just an avid supporter. But from my perspective, in my opinion, is that when you are out in public and you are openly endorsing or representing the America First movement, you need to be optical. You need to present yourself in a way that reflects well on the America First movement. You can't be doing things that our enemies already call us, you know what I'm saying? And you can't
that.
make us
Yeah.
make America First look bad. No, you know, like I said, I am not in a position of authority to tell people what to do or anything like that. I'm just saying my opinion.
It's good advice, Spexo.
Yeah.
It's really good advice.
Hmm.
We want to portray ourselves as, basically crusaders. I don't mean going around, Deus volting
Hmm.
everywhere, but it's good to remember you are soldiers of Christ, and you got to direct your mind to Him. Now, I know, we have a lot of energy in this, as you mentioned, it is young. I am very young, I'm probably bringing up like the rear guard of the youth here, but it's good just to control that in public and to portray yourselves as Christ would portray Himself.
Hmm.
That's essentially it.
Absolutely. An imitation of Christ. And that's also what attracted me to America First. I mean, I supported America First before I was such a devout Catholic just because I liked the rhetoric and the nationalist standpoints that I was hearing. But once I really started getting devout in my faith, once I became a really strong Catholic, that made me accelerate my support even further because the most important things in my life are Christ, my family, and my nation. And the America First movement is the only movement that is openly invoking the name of Christ and is openly calling for nationalism, which in turn will benefit the prosperity of my family. That's why I am so, and it's the only viable political option where I truly believe that if there is a way to fix this country, it will be through the America First movement. So,
Mhm. It is the only pragmatic movement. You look around you and you see who is there. Who is there to the would you say to the right of Nick? And there's really no one. That's this is the correct place to be. And
absolutely.
everyone else around, what are they talking about, Spexo? What are they
Absolutely.
talking
Yeah.
about? It's stuff like William F. Buckley. Like they all come from the same corporation. I'm a Buckleyite, and they go out there and they spread their nonsense, and they're just what was liberal 10 years ago. I'm preaching to the choir on this matter.
No, it's
But
good.
with Nick, guys, it's important to remember is that just because one controversy comes out about him and it's spread from an unknown source or even from a close source, and he said this before, do not disavow, do not become unloyal because you hear one bad thing.
Yep.
Okay, we're not fair weather patriots. We are hardcore. We're in it for the long haul, and got to be like you're building Notre Dame, spec. So
Hmm.
like we may not be able to see this structure be finally built, but our next generations, we're going to make sure that they are given the weapons and the capabilities to see this beautiful cathedral, this beautiful movement come to fruition.
Hmm.
I bet you're excited to see your kids grow up in a better world or just a better region, like regionalism. Like if your household is going to be a fortress, why couldn't your neighborhood, why couldn't your town, your county? This is how we have to think.
Hmm.
And I bet you're excited or probably really worried as a father, but all the same, a
Yeah.
lot of feelings going on with you, the burgeoning family.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, like I said, I have two children now. I'm 27 years old, and of course, that's on my mind every single day. Is like, what is the world that my children are going to grow up in? And obviously, the world is owned by Satan. Satan controls this world, but the only thing that makes this world better than hell is that we still have the option to walk with Christ. In hell, all the people that deserve to be punished are there, right? On earth, it seems that all of the righteous people are the ones being punished who don't deserve to be. But maybe this suffering is part of God's grace. Maybe it's part of God's plan. I believe that. But in terms of my children, I want them to grow up in a country that doesn't hate them because they're white. I want my girls to grow up in a country that it doesn't hate them because they're Christian and they openly praise Jesus Christ. I want my girls to run in a country that is virtuous, that doesn't endorse or sensationalize or tolerate promiscuity and abortion, which is literal murder. That's the type of place that I don't want my children to grow up on. I want them to grow up in. I want them to grow up in a virtuous Christian nation. And I'm hoping that even though this is a multi-generational war, that we can push the ball in the direction enough, you know. But ultimately, it's up to me and my wife to raise our kids to walk with Christ, to be good Christian people. And unfortunately, I have to prepare them for the world. That's my mission as a father, is to prepare my kids for the world. But ultimately, I'm going to have to let them make their own decisions, and that's one of the hardest things. But all I can do is really pray on that matter, you know.
That's true. You know, you kind of have to, set the trainer wheels on and then let them loose at a certain time, I guess.
Mhm.
But, it's important, guys. Family is the cornerstone of society, and the great degradation of our race really came about with the destruction of our family through contraceptives and divorce rates
Birth control. Yeah.
and birth control. It really destroyed. How can you care about, your larger family, which is your race, your very extended broad family, when you don't even care about your own personal family,
Hmm.
when you don't even care, that, this is your third wife, or, that my kid, I don't even talk to my kids anymore. I make this joke all the time. It's like, I'm a boomer and I'm on my third Vietnamese wife already, cheers. But, and my kid's in college somewhere, and I don't know about him anymore. He's some hippie, I raised him well. I shook his hand firmly on his
Yeah,
graduation.
right.
You can't have this style of parenting. You need to be, it's a delicate matter, but
You need to be like strict, but you can't be overbearing. I learned, like, you have
firm
to.
but fair.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You have to, when your kids do something wrong, you have to talk to them. You do have to punish them. They have to face consequences for their action, but they have to understand why they're facing consequences. They can't just be like, "Why am I getting punished? Why is this wrong?" You have to explain that to them, and you have to also not exactly be unfair. You have to be righteous, and you have to just teach them the right morals and right values, and
Yeah.
hope that something clicks with them, you know. But ultimately, it's ultimately in God's hands, and it's ultimately up to them what path they're going to continue on once they leave your house, which is a very scary thought, because as a parent, you want what's best for your child, and it's like, what's best for them, but they're ultimately going to be their own person, which it sucks, kind of, but that's the way of life.
Oh,
And
you've seen it.
one thing I wanted to say is that you said something like, "Oh, who's to the right of us," or whatever. And I noticed that a lot of Wignats say things like, "Oh, you just call anybody to the right of you a Wignat," or whatever. And it's like, well, now this is not America First. This is me talking. If I had my way, if somebody gave me ultimate power, I would reestablish Christendom and make Catholic monarchies, right?
Exactly.
Nothing is. What'd you say? Oh,
Exactly.
yeah.
I'm a modern monarchist.
Exactly. So now, obviously, this is unrealistic, right? Obviously, but I'm saying hypothetically. So my utopian fantasy is to live in a Catholic monarchy. Nothing is more right wing than that. There is no more right wing. You're not more right wing because you idolize race. That makes you a pagan degenerate. That makes you a leftist, honestly. That just makes you a racist leftist. But I want
Yeah.
a Catholic monarchy. And if you know anything about Catholic monarchies or the French Revolution, where did right wing and left wing come from? The French Revolution. The people on the right wanted to preserve and conserve, like the paleo conservatives wanted to conserve the monarchy, and the people to the left wanted to destroy it and implement these ideas of liberty and
Yeah.
individualism. So,
That's what it was. It was from the assembly hall at I was at the it was at Vienna. It was like right, you know what I'm talking about, right? It was right after Napoleon was defeated, and they were trying to reform Europe, and it was like the right people, right? The people on the right were the
I thought it
monarchists.
was before. I thought it was when I'm so bad with like names and stuff like that. The queen, the king and the queen who supposedly said let them eat cake or whatever. They
Marie Antoinette, yeah.
Right, Marie Antoinette. So before they were completely stripped out of power, and the revolution actually happened, where they started with the guillotines and stuff like that, they were trying to have these assembly halls where they were debating on how they could fix these problems. And I think there was 3 sections, and 2 of the sections were the right wing and the left wing. And the left wing, God bless you, bless you. The left wing wanted liberty and to destroy the monarchy, and the right wing wanted to continue the monarchy but try to reform it, I guess.
Ah, yes, they were the first conservative on the right, on the right side. We want what you guys want, but just don't cut off their heads,
Yeah.
But it happened anyway. It
Yeah.
happened anyway.
Yep, exactly. You can't. That's why you can't give in to these people. You can't capitulate or try to live up to their morals. These people, our enemies, leftists, right? And honestly, the establishment, right? But that's another matter. The traitors are worse than our enemies, but our enemies who conservatives seem to constantly want to live up to, like by saying things like, no, we're not racist, no, well, no, look, if you look like this, like, oh, I just want to protect my family, and like they think that they have to like intellectualize why the feelings that they feel are legitimate, when in reality we are the ones with the moral high grounds. We are Christians. We believe in God and Jesus Christ, and we believe in natural order and nature, right? They believe in murdering
Mhm.
babies. They believe that two men getting married is an acceptable lifestyle. They believe that they should be able to ban a Dr. Seuss book because there might be racist implications, but showing Cardi B half naked on MTV to little girls is completely fine. Those people
Yeah.
are evil. All right. So we have nothing to apologize for. We have nothing to capitulate and say, like, oh no, well, maybe we could work out. Maybe we could unify and reconcile. They called us the epitome of evil for the last 4 years. They hate us. They hate Jesus Christ. There is no unification. There is no reuniting and all this nonsense. We need to win.
We do need to win. And what you just said, it boils down to why Cardi B is allowed to do that, and why something like as banal as Dr. Seuss is kicked off is because civil rights has replaced Christianity as the religion of this nation, without a doubt.
Mhm.
They are our gods now. You have on your apotheosis upon our American culture is George Floyd, whose face takes up half of the apotheosis, and then you have
Mhm.
Rosa Parks. She's in the back, right, where she belongs, and then you have all these other people, right, and everyone is just supposed to worship them because they saved humans. They did maybe things that were naturally good. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, naturally good, like I don't know what the guidelines on Twitter are for you, so I don't want to like blow your cover, okay? But all I'm going to say
Yes,
is that they did
keep it
things that,
optical.
that human
Uh-huh.
they did things that other humans view as good,
Mhm.
okay? That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying I view them as good, but what's the supernatural purpose of it? Like, is there any supernatural? Is there any religious elements to that? No, we're just creating humans
Mhm.
as our new gods, you
Right.
know. And it's creating a generation of new zealots, not for Christ, not for the faith, but for these heroes, for these quote unquote heroes.
Absolutely. And
Now,
what was I going to say? So JB likes to talk about this a lot, about our foundation myth. And America's foundation myth was about like we were a nation of pioneers, of settlers, people trying to spread Christianity, people who took this land that was just inhabited by uncivilized savages, basically, right? That didn't form civilization, that were just killing each other. And we conquered this land and we formed the most powerful, strongest nation in the world. That was originally our foundation myth, right? Now, since
yeah,
basically World War II and the 1960s counterculture revolution, our foundation myth has basically become we are evil racists. White people are Nazis. We abused and
except during 1939 and 45, that's
right.
when we're not evil.
Yeah, and destroy. Yeah, we were good up until I don't know. We were only good during World War II, when we were destroying the Nazis, I guess. And it's just complete nonsense. So now our foundation myth is based on like these civil rights and this liberalism, and that we are just completely inherently evil. And that's what our children are learning in school. Our children are learning about how racist their ancestors were, and now they want to basically punish all white people for this perceived crimes of their ancestors. And we can't allow that to happen. And people are so scared, and they should be, honestly, because there are tangible threats on the temporal world with Antifa or people just losing their livelihood because of their viewpoints, even though they're not crazy, they're actually in the right. But our beliefs, our values are based on facts. It's based on history. All I keep saying this, all throughout human civilization for the last 2,000 years, people felt the way we felt. They believed in Christ. They were nationalists. They wanted their whole entire purpose was to serve God and their family, right? They wanted a good place to live. They wanted to live in a high trust community. That was completely natural for the last 2,000 years up until 60 years ago, right? 60 years ago, the culmination of this individualism, hyper liberty, all this stuff just basically culminated in this counter revolution where you had the introduction of birth control and contraception and the rock and roll revolution, civil rights era, the drug revolution, all this stuff. And ever since then, it's just been an accelerated progression, which eventually got to a boiling point in 2012 with all of this transgender stuff, and now we are just living in hell. We are in hell world.
Hmm. Oh, and there is no bottom to this level of hell,
Yeah.
so it's just you keep taking the elevator down. Welcome to the new Museum of Horrors. Run by I was about to mention some Hollywood producers. You got Weinstein and Steinbeck and Goldstein and Lev Bronstein. But anyway, all of this, yeah, it's one big purpose. And I think what catches the humans and what takes a lot of people away from their faith and a lot of people away from their nationality is sex. A lot of it is because immorality, everyone likes to think that their passions are their own.
Mm-hmm.
But, when you can mobilize somebody's passions to work for your political goal, and this is a lot of E. Michael Jones, libido dominandi stuff.
Absolutely.
You can control that society.
Yep.
Marquis de Sade, the great French degenerate, the infamous French degenerate, said the only reason why the immoral plays in Bordeaux and in Paris did not succeed is that because the people in the front seats could see everything that was going on, but the people in the back were not getting the same view. So therefore, they were not sinning as much because they couldn't see. But he said there will come a day when the mass transit of this sexual freedom, will be spread across the globe. And we've seen it. It's the internet.
Yeah.
It's the internet. And it's been a double-edged sword for us. So we found Nick through this movement. Yes, we've been able to, talk to each other across this movement, meet new friends, and become based with that word.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, it's destroyed so many souls. It's destroyed the morality of so many people. And I think what we need to start talking about too is how we can start censoring, pornography, how we can start criminalizing pornography. We need to push that. I don't care who calls us Nazis. I really don't. I don't care if people call us prudes and like, oh, it's enjoyed by everybody. Screw that. We need to start censoring that hardcore, because if we lose the youth like us, if we lose us, if your kids get perverted by this stuff, and regardless to how best you parent, it's so accessible. And if you lose kids and generations to this crap, it's going to be all for nothing, everything that we do, because they won't care about America first. They won't even care about their faith. They want that quick and easy impulse hit from pornography and from acting on illicit passions. And that's why I really took to Nick, is because he hit hard on the immorality of the culture around e-girls and the internet, and how we need to form a better society. It's not just about like race in America first. Like you mentioned, it cannot be about. It needs to have God focus. It needs to be morals. And man, that's just like my biggest gripe, is that we need to get people to kick pornography. We need them to kick these things and not view them, because it's eating away. It's eating away at our whole world, man. I get kind of emotional about it. It's just, it is.
Yeah, and
it's a virus.
I said this I made a video about why you should stop watching porn, and I talked about E. Michael Jones, how he basically said that sexual liberation is political control, because if you can control the morals, if you can control the sexual promiscuity of a nation and what they determine is acceptable and what they tolerate, then you can control the culture. And when you control the culture, then you control the politics and the policies and all of that stuff. And as far as criminalizing porn, absolutely. I don't even understand where that's even a question. It's not about free speech or liberty and stuff like that. You cannot have freedom and liberty without order. Order must come first, because if you don't have order, then you don't have real freedom or liberty. You have chaos. And that is basically what we have now. We have, what is it called? Anarcho-tyranny, where basically it's controlled chaos in order to benefit the elites. That's basically what we have now. And all of this degeneracy and promiscuity that is not only tolerated but promoted as natural is all a way to control the masses. It's all a way to push us away from God. It's all a way to promote hedonism and nihilism and have us focus on things and our impulses and enslave us to hedonism. That's what it's about.
That is what it's about, man. And Dr. Jones, a lot of people like to say that sometimes he can be a little too rigid, a little too boring. I got some insight on kind of how he runs his business. I'm not going to say how, but
he's one of my favorite writers, honestly.
Yeah, he's a masterclass. He's a masterclass writer and thinker. He's a mad scientist. The guy is got good energy, and he saved a lot of people from the brink. Myself included. So You got to respect that, Specs. So,
And
but anyway, though,
Nick had E. Michael Jones on his show, and I know that Nick has probably read some of his books and probably really likes him. And also, I don't know. Well, yeah, I think I could say his name because he was public during the culture war. I won't even say his name just in case. But one of the guys who you know personally who works with E. Michael Jones was one of the guys who said,
yeah,
uh,
that's Dave Riley.
there you go.
He's
Yeah,
okay
Dave.
with this.
Okay. Who Dave Riley? He did the at the Groyper Wars. He said he asked Rob Smith and Charlie Kirk, how is anal sex helping us win the culture war or whatever? And I don't know too much about Dave Riley's story, but what I got from his timeline was that he used to be kind of into degeneracy too until he found Jesus Christ, and I guess E. Michael Jones helped him, and now he's like a devout Catholic, and he's working with E. Michael Jones, and I know that he has a beautiful family now, and that's awesome for him, and that's similar to my story. I was a complete hedonistic degenerate for the vast majority of my teenage and early 20s, until I got clean. But then once I got clean, that was only like getting rid of the symptoms. I stopped doing drugs, but I was still a hedonist. I was still a degenerate. I was still an atheist. And it really wasn't until I found Jesus Christ and came back to God that I really started changing my life and my morals and my views and like what my ultimate goals and priorities were.
Yeah. Converts make sometimes the best crusaders for the faith, dude. Some of us cradle Catholics down here, we get lazy, we get we get somewhat content and put at ease by things. All jokes, but no, Dave is a great guy, and Culture Wars magazine's a great publication. Speckzo, I'm not sure how much time I have left or you have left, but anything else you'd like to talk about? Because I got some pressing matters of state in the old kingdom to take care of.
I don't know. If you got to go, that's all. It's all good. I think we did good. We're at about 46 minutes. So if there's anything else that you want to ask me or any questions that you want to address real quick or concerns, let me know, and I'll do whatever I can to answer.
Yeah, no problem. First of all, though, I was like, yeah, I really I'd like to do this again, and we'll like to get a script down for you guys. Off the cuff is more fun. I agree, and it's all best when we can put our own agendas and our own skill sets to use. I'm Polish, so my list of oral skill sets is very, very low.
Oh,
Thank you,
people think I'm Italian for some reason. People say that I gesticulate like an Italian or something like that. I am Irish and German. I've seen like 7 comments calling me like, "Oh, wow, that's like a typical Italian." I'm like, I'm not Italian at all. Like I have zero Italian in me. My wife's Italian, but I still love her. But I'm not Italian. I'm Irish and German. So.
Oh yeah, you're a good mix. You're like you are the stereotype of the good old Johnny Appleseed.
Man. Yeah, right.
But yeah, anything you'd like to leave the audience on? I'll just say that always seek to uncover the truth, and I'll just tell all the gripers that always seek to uncover the truth, and don't be settled with an answer that the world tells you with. Don't be settled with it. Always dig a little deeper. If you're noticing that there is consternation on their side and resistance, and they're pushing back against your inquisitive mind, just dig deeper. Buckle down, dig deeper. Stay loyal to Nick, and most of all, I would say, say your daily rosary. And even if you're not a Catholic, guys, I would start to foster a great relationship and devotion to the Mother of God. It's very important. And that's all I have to say, Speckzo.
That's great. I'll leave you guys with this. Well, it was very nice to talk to you. It was nice meeting you. I think that this whole AFPAC experience really helped me meet a lot of people that are a lot of good guys, and it was really cool just to be able to talk to people who you're on that same wavelength, and you could talk how you talk on the internet, like you can't talk around normal people. My advice to everybody would be, obviously, in terms of America First, stay loyal to Nick. I would recommend that everybody make it their priority to get self-established financially and then start a family. That should be your main goal. And of course, get a good relationship with Jesus Christ. But don't give in to, or try not to give in as hard as it is, to the temporal temptations of the world, the carnal, hedonistic ideas that you want to fit in with the world and you want to do things that are just physically or mentally pleasurable. I think that everybody's main goal should be to try and get a good job, save money, and ultimately find a good wife and have children, and to create a good family and a good life for you and your family. That's what I think everybody should priority should be, and I think that's the way to really praise God. I think that if you can't be a monk and you can't dedicate your entire life to God in that way, I think the second best thing is to create a God-loving family. So it was good talking to you. We'll do this again, definitely.
Oh, of course.
Do you want to plug anything like your Twitter or anything? Or
Oh, dude, after that beautiful advice, I will let your mind. You got it, dude. This is your ship. Sail it off the horizon, okay?
all right, I'll put Modern Monarchist's Twitter and Instagrams in the description, and obviously you could follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and the best place is at Telegram t.me/speckzo. Until next time, Christ is King.